On May 29, 1453, a single exhausted guard, his face streaked with grime and fear, stumbled along the Constantinople wall. Ahead, the Kerkoporta gate, small and wooden, swung gently ajar. Every other lock held fast. This one was unlocked. It was the crack in a 1,000-year empire. The official histories speak of overwhelming force. But how did a single unlocked door undo a fortress? This wasn't an accident. What quiet promise holds your world together? What if it was never locked at all? To understand what is at stake, you need to picture Constantinople in the spring of 1453. You must erase the postcard ruins from your mind and see the living city, the last bastion of the Roman Empire, a golden metropolis that smelled of sea salt, incense, and decay. For over a millennium, it had been the envy of the world, protected by the legendary Theodosian walls, a triple-layered system of fortifications stretching for miles. So formidable they were considered a direct extension of God's will. Inside, Emperor Constantine XI, Palaiologos, a man who carried the name of the city's founder, commanded a skeleton force of less than 8,000 soldiers, a mix of his own men and Genoese mercenaries. Outside, the young and brilliant Ottoman Sultan, Mehmed II, had assembled an army of between 80,000 and 200,000 troops, along with a navy of 320 vessels that choked the Bosphorus Strait. For weeks, the air had been filled with the deafening, bone-shaking roar of Mehmed's new superweapon, a massive bronze cannon named Basilica, which hurled stone projectiles weighing between 1,200 and 1,500 pounds against the ancient ramparts. Every day, the defenders would frantically rebuild the shattered sections of the wall under the cover of darkness, their hands raw and bleeding. They were outnumbered more than 10 to 1. Their supplies were dwindling. Their allies in Christian Europe had sent prayers, but no soldiers. All they had left was stone, faith, and the belief that their walls, which had never failed, would not fail them now. This wasn't a battle. It was a slow, methodical strangulation, and everyone on both sides of the wall knew it was only a matter of time. The only question was how it would end. But the real story of how it ended is far more unsettling than you've been told. And this is where the story stops making sense. The siege began on April 6, 1453. The first few weeks were a relentless, percussive hell. The Ottoman cannons fired day and night, their rhythm becoming a monstrous heartbeat for the terrified city. The defenders, led by the professional soldier Giovanni Giustiniani, fought with a courage born of pure desperation, repelling every infantry assault. But Mehmed was not just a brute. He was a master of psychological warfare. He knew the city was starving. He knew the defenders were exhausted. He ordered his engineers to begin digging tunnels to mine the walls from below, forcing the Byzantines to divert precious manpower to countermining operations in the dark, suffocating earth. But the strangest part wasn't the tunnels. Then, in a move of pure strategic genius, he bypassed the massive chain protecting the Golden Horn Harbor. He ordered his men to construct a greased log road, and overnight, they physically dragged approximately 70 of his ships overland, around the Genoese colony of Galata, and into the city's protected harbor. When the citizens of Constantinople woke up on April 22nd, they saw the Ottoman fleet now sitting in their backyard. The psychological blow was devastating. Hope began to curdle into dread. Inside the walls, Constantine XI held frantic councils. He walked the ramparts every single night, his purple imperial boots covered in dust, trying to bolster the morale of men who could barely stand. But there's a detail buried in the record that nobody flagged at the time. He knew his city was a tomb, but he refused to be buried alive. He rejected Mehmed's final offer of surrender, choosing to die with the empire his namesake founded. According to historical records, on May 26th, a strange, thick fog descended upon the city. an event so unusual for that time of year it was seen as a terrible omen. That night, the final Christian service was held in the Hagia Sophia. The air inside the great cathedral was heavy with the scent of melting beeswax and the sound of weeping. Catholic and Orthodox Christians, who had been bitter rivals for centuries, took communion together knowing it was their last. They were united not by doctrine, but by their shared mortality. If you had been in that cathedral, you would have seen the emperor himself, stripped of his regalia, praying as just another man awaiting his end. Outside, the Ottoman camp was a sea of bonfires, the Sultan's soldiers celebrating the final assault planned for the next dawn. Here's the detail that would have made your blood run cold. The defenders were now so few, so utterly spent, that along the northern stretch of the wall, in the Blackernay district, a single soldier was responsible for guarding a length of wall that should have been manned by 10. It is in this section, the oldest and most complex part of the defenses, that the Kerkoporta gate is located. It was a small postern used by civilians in peacetime and long since locked, or so everyone believed. The full horror of what happened next would only be understood centuries later. Here's where it gets worse. The final assault began before dawn on May 29th. Tens of thousands of Ottoman soldiers charged the walls in 3 successive waves. The fighting was apocalyptic, a storm of steel, fire, and screaming that turned the moat red. The defenders held. They threw back the first wave of irregulars. They threw back the second wave of elite Anatolian troops. But during the height of the battle at the main breach, something happened far to the north, in the quiet Blackernay section. A small group of Janissaries, the Sultan's most elite soldiers, reportedly noticed the Kerkoporta gate was unlatched or ajar. There was no great fight, no heroic last stand. They simply pushed it open and slipped inside, one by one, into the courtyard beyond. They met no resistance. The few guards in that sector were either dead or had been drawn to the main fight. They quickly overwhelmed the small watchtower overlooking the gate and, in a move that would seal the city's fate, one of them scrambled to the top of the tower and raised the blood-red Ottoman standard. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a Byzantine soldier on a nearby section of the wall saw it. He saw the enemy flag, not outside the walls, but inside. The impossible has happened. Think about the person you trust most in the world. Now imagine them holding the knife. The soldier's shout of alarm was not one of defiance, but of pure, soul-shattering panic. The rumor spread along the ramparts faster than fire through dry grass. The Turks are inside the city. The psychological dam breaks. The belief that had sustained them for 53 days, the faith in their walls, evaporates in a single, horrifying instant. This was not a military defeat. It was the betrayal of 1,000 years of certainty. But the true nature of this betrayal is even more chilling. What nobody realized yet, not even the people involved, was that this had already been decided. This was not chaos. You need to understand that this was a system. The Janissaries who entered through the Kerkoporta did not run rampant. They executed a precise tactical maneuver. Their appearance and the raising of the flag were perfectly timed to coincide with the third, final assault wave at the heavily damaged St. Romanus Gate miles away. The panic they created was the real weapon. It did exactly what it was designed to do. It broke the defenders' chain of command. Men abandoned their posts to rush towards the phantom threat in the north, believing the main fight was lost. In the confusion, the Genoese commander, Giustiniani, the professional soldier holding the entire defense together, was grievously wounded. According to historical accounts, his nerve broke, and he ordered his men to carry him from the field. Seeing their leader retreat, the remaining Genoese reportedly panicked and fled their posts, leaving the primary breach fatally exposed. The system of defense collapsed not from external pressure, but from internal failure. What came next had never happened in recorded history. and hasn't since. Now, fast forward 300 years. It is June 23, 1757, on a humid, rain-soaked field in Bengal, India. You are watching the Battle of Plassey. On one side, Robert Clive of the British East India Company commanded a force of approximately 3,000 men. On the other, Siraj-ud-Dowlah, the Nawab of Bengal, commanded a massive, seemingly invincible army of around 50,000. But Clive had a secret weapon. He had found the Kerkoporta in the Nawab's army. His name was Mir Jafar, the Nawab's commander-in-chief. Clive had made a secret deal with him. As the battle began, the Nawab ordered his forces to advance. But Mir Jafar's massive contingent of the army, the soldiers who were supposed to win the day, did not move. They simply stood there, watching, as Clive's small, disciplined force methodically tore the loyal parts of the Nawab's army to pieces. And here's what should make you deeply uncomfortable. This wasn't unusual. In both Constantinople and Plassey, the empire did not fall to a frontal assault. It was hollowed out from within by a single point of failure, a single man making a single choice. This is not a fluke. It's a design. But there is one more person in this story, a name that proves this pattern is far more intentional than you can imagine. You haven't heard their name yet? You should have. The name you should have heard is Omishund, the Bengali merchant who reportedly brokered the secret deal between Robert Clive and Mir Jafar. The treaty they drafted was the real weapon, the document that proves this wasn't about a battle. It was about what comes after. That treaty wasn't just a promise of inaction. It was a cold, hard contract for the sale of a kingdom. In exchange for his betrayal, Mir Jafar would be installed by the British as the new puppet Nawab of Bengal. The British East India Company, in turn, would receive vast fortunes and effective control over the wealthiest province in India. This wasn't about politics. The official account says this was about liberating Bengal from a tyrant. But the treaty, a copy of which reportedly still exists, lists the exact payments in rupees to be made to Clive and other company officials personally. The fall of Bengal wasn't a military victory. It was a leveraged buyout, secured by an insider. Now look back at the Kerkoporta gate. Was it left open by a traitor paid in Ottoman gold? Or was it simply left unlocked by an exhausted, terrified soldier who had lost all hope? The historical record is silent on this point, and in the end, it doesn't matter. The result is identical. In both cases, the system of loyalty was replaced by a system of incentives. This is the systemic truth. Empires do not fall. They are sold. They are dismantled piece by piece from the inside by the very people sworn to protect them for a price. The real horror isn't the final battle. It's the quiet negotiation that takes place in a dark room weeks before. This system, the art of finding and exploiting the Kerkoporta, is the foundational principle of modern power. It is used in corporate espionage, in political coups, in intelligence operations across the globe. You find the disgruntled executive, the compromised politician, the indebted officer. You find their price, and you let them open the gate for you. What you now understand, and what most people never will, is that the most powerful weapon in human history isn't a cannon or a bomb. It's a whisper in the right ear. You now see that the fall of empires isn't a grand, tragic opera. It is a quiet, cold, and meticulously documented business transaction. And the part nobody could explain came next. The details of these transactions are often hidden in plain sight, if you know where to look. So how did a 1,000-year-old empire, protected by the most formidable walls in the world, fall because of one unlocked door? It didn't. It fell long before that. It fell the moment someone inside decided that their own survival, their own profit, or their own despair was worth more than the entire world they were sworn to protect. The unlocked gate was not the cause of the collapse. It was a symptom of it. The real weakness was never in the stone. It was in the silent, flawed heart of a human being. The gate was merely the physical manifestation of a trust that had already been broken. The answer to the question you've been sitting with this entire video, the question of what holds your own world together, is this. It is held together by a fragile, invisible web of unspoken agreements. You trust that the pilot has checked the engines. You trust that the banker is protecting your money. You trust that the people in power are not secretly negotiating with the enemy at the gates. The terrifying truth, the answer revealed by both a wooden door in 1453 and a stationary army in 1757, is that every system you rely on is only as strong as its most compromised member. Every institution has a Kerkoporta, and you almost never hear the sound of the lock turning. In the end, it always comes back to that small wooden door, still swinging gently ajar. A forgotten detail. A single point of failure that unraveled a millennium. But the Kerkoporta was never just a gate. It was a choice. You walk past these gates every day. The IT administrator with the keys to the entire company's data. The civil servant with access to state secrets. The quiet colleague who sees everything and says nothing. You trust they have locked the door. The next time you place your absolute faith in a system, a leader, or an institution, remember the sight of the Ottoman flag flying inside the walls of Constantinople. Remember the stillness of Mir Jafar's army on the field of Plassey, because the tools of betrayal have not changed, and the price of trust is always higher than you think. Tell me in the comments, which part of this stayed with you?